Today, I want to tell you something about your habits that is going to irritate you. It should. You've started this habit before, probably 6 or 8 times, maybe more, and every time it ends the same way. A single skipped day that somehow becomes permanent. One missed workout, 1 week of chaos at work, 1 night of takeaway and Netflix, and the habit is just gone. A few days later, maybe a few weeks, maybe a few months, you start again from scratch. Same motivation, same plan, same quiet suspicion that you're fundamentally bad at this. You're not bad at starting. Starting is easy. You're remarkably good at starting. What you've actually built over 2 or 3 years of repeated attempts is a second habit, a more automatic one, the habit of resetting to 0. Here's what you've actually been training your brain to do. When researchers track habit formation, they measure something called automaticity. That's how much a behavior has shifted from conscious effort to automatic execution. By day 30 of a consistent routine, most people sit at roughly 40% automaticity. The neural pathway linking the cue to the behavior is real, it's measurable, it's well established, it isn't fragile. It takes sustained neglect to meaningfully weaken it. One missed day doesn't erase that. The neuroscience is clear. Neural pathways don't disappear overnight. Missing a Tuesday doesn't undo 23 consecutive Mondays through Saturdays. The path is still there. But quitting does erase it. Gradually, over weeks of non-use, the pathway weakens. The brain reallocates that processing capacity elsewhere. When you decide, in the aftermath of one bad day, that the habit is over, when you tell yourself you'll start fresh next month, that's the moment you actually destroy it, not the missed day, the decision that followed it. You've been torching a 70% complete bridge, calling it demolition, and then wondering why you always seem to be building from the foundation. Here's the part that should genuinely irritate you. The start fresh approach isn't neutral. Each restart burns the progress you made, yes, but it also deepens a different neural pathway, the one that connects "I missed a day" to "this habit is over." You've practiced that response so many times, it's probably more automatic now than the habit itself. And here's why your brain has been lying to you about what this means. The reason you experience each failure as evidence about who you are, rather than as data about a pattern you're running, is this. All or nothing thinking tends to live in people who hold high standards. This isn't a consolation, it's a trap with a specific mechanism. You apply the same standard to habits that you'd apply to a commitment you made to someone else. Missing a day feels like lying, like breaking a promise. And when you break a promise, you don't get to just resume, you have to acknowledge the rupture. In the internal logic of this pattern, that means starting over and proving you can do it right this time. That's a coherent framework, it just doesn't match how behavioral change actually works. Habits aren't contracts. Missing a day doesn't mean you violated an agreement, it means you're human and something happened. The question that determines whether you have this habit in 6 months isn't, "Did I miss a day?" It's, "What did I do the day after?" Now let's name the pattern you've been running. 6 to 12 restarts over 2 to 3 years isn't a discipline problem, it's a pattern. And patterns, once named, become visible in real time. That's the only moment you can interrupt them. Here's what your pattern likely looks like, reconstructed. You start with genuine commitment. You maintain it through the first 2 weeks on novelty and motivation. Around week 2 or 3, one disruption occurs. Work, travel, illness, or a bad night. You miss a day. You feel the specific guilt of having broken a streak. Then comes the thought, usually within 24 hours, "I've lost it. I'll start properly again on Monday." Monday becomes next month. Next month becomes a version of this same conversation 6 months from now. The disruption isn't the problem. The disruption is going to happen, always, every cycle, without exception. The problem is the meaning you assign to it and the decision that follows. You don't have a consistency problem. You have a recovery problem, and those require completely different fixes. Everything I'm about to tell you reduces to a single rule. Behavioral research on habit disruption converges on a finding that's almost insultingly simple. Missing one day does not significantly impact long-term habit formation. Missing 2 days in a row substantially increases the risk of full abandonment, which means the entire thing reduces to one rule: never miss twice. Not never miss. That standard will eventually fail because life is not cooperating with your streak. The standard is, when you miss, the next day is non-negotiable. This works because it attacks the pattern at the only moment it can be interrupted, in the 24 hours after a missed day, when the decision to quit or resume is made. If you've decided in advance that the next day is mandatory, there's no decision to make. The rationalization can't find purchase. "I'll start fresh on Monday" has nowhere to land. Monday is already spoken for. The rule also changes your identity. You're no longer someone who keeps perfect streaks. That's a fragile identity. It shatters on contact with reality. You become someone who always comes back. That identity is indestructible. It gets reinforced every single time you miss and resume, rather than broken every time you miss and quit. Here's what this rule asks you to give up. The reset ritual has a hidden payoff. Starting fresh feels clean. It removes the accumulated guilt of the missed days. It lets you begin again with full motivation and no debt. That feeling is real, and it's exactly what makes the pattern self-perpetuating. Using never miss twice means you don't get the clean slate. You resume a habit that has a gap in it. You carry that gap forward. It stays in the record. That's uncomfortable if you're running on a perfection standard. But consider what you're trading it for: an actual habit in 6 months that you didn't build 7 times. The cleanliness of the fresh start is worth nothing if you're back in the same position in 3 months. A 27-day streak with 1 gap beats 8 clean restarts that never reach 30. Here is exactly what you do in the next 24 hours. When you miss a day, execute these 3 steps in order. First, name it without drama. Say it plainly: "I missed today." No narrative about what it means, no conclusions about character. One neutral statement. Second, pre-commit to tomorrow before you sleep. Decide specifically when and how you'll execute tomorrow. Write it down or say it aloud. The decision is made tonight, not in the morning when friction is highest. Third, lower the bar for tomorrow only. Use your minimum viable version. The goal tomorrow is not excellence, it's resumption. 10 minutes count, 1 page counts, 3 breaths count. Show up at any intensity. That's it. 3 steps, executed once, in the window between missing a day and waking up the next morning. If you execute all 3, you've interrupted the only pattern that's actually been defeating you. Now here's the only moment that actually matters. The next time you miss a day, and you will, because you're a person with a real life, you'll feel the familiar pull toward the clean slate, toward Monday, toward a fresh start with a better plan. That pull is the pattern identifying itself. It's the most important moment in your entire habit-building history. Not the morning you started with high motivation, not the first week when everything felt easy. This moment, the day after a miss when the decision is live. This is the only moment that determines whether this habit survives. You've practiced the wrong response to it for 2 or 3 years. That's not a character flaw. It's just a habit, and habits can be replaced. You already know how to start. Now learn how to resume. That's the only skill you're missing.